Ever set like a really ambitious goal for yourself? You're super gung-ho at first and then like life just kind of happens and you never quite get around to it.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us, right?
Totally.
Hmm.
But what if I told you there's this whole fascinating area of like behavioral science that says we might be going about this whole goal setting thing the wrong way?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So today we're going to do a deep dive, look at how these like small, almost tiny changes can unlock some seriously big results in our
I am
lives.
so here for that. I feel like we're always told we need these like massive overhauls to see any real progress. But honestly, who has time for that?
Right?
Our brains are actually like hardwired for simplicity, you know? When we
Yeah.
set these crazy complex goals for ourselves, we just set ourselves up for distractions to take over, and then boom, motivation's out the window.
Ugh, tell me about it. It's like every time I try one of those complicated diets with a million rules,
Oh, the
I
worst.
just end up like face first in a pint of ice cream by day 3. It's a recipe for disaster.
Totally. That's actually where this book we're diving into comes in. Think small.
Oh,
It's all based on like real behavioral science research, not just some fluffy self-help stuff. And it suggests that small but, strategic nudges
mm-hmm.
can be way more effective than trying to force some massive change overnight. It's about working with our brains, not against them.
So it's less new year, new me, and more like slow and steady wins the race kind of thing.
Exactly. Think small lays out this framework of 7 steps
Okay.
to sort of gently nudge yourself toward your goals.
7 steps actually sounds pretty doable. What's the first one? Where do we even start?
So step 1 is huge, right? It's
Yeah.
all about setting the right goals in the first place.
Makes sense.
We get so caught up chasing after things we think are going to make us happy, like, oh, I need a bigger house or a fancy job. But the research actually suggests those things don't always equal real, genuine well-being.
Hmm. So you're saying my lifelong dream of owning a sports car might not actually be the ticket to happiness.
It might, or it might not, right? It's all about figuring out what really matters to you. Think Small talks about these 5 key factors that have actually been linked to increased well-being.
Okay, I'm listening.
So we're talking strong social connections, taking care of your physical health, practicing
And
generosity,
being kind to others, love that?
engaging in like continuous learning, and then this is a big one, cultivating mindfulness. These are things that actually lead to lasting fulfillment.
It's interesting, right? It's less about the stuff we accumulate and more about how we're actually living our lives, like
Yeah,
connecting with the world around us, right?
100%. And here's another big takeaway from Think Small. Focusing on one meaningful goal at a time instead of trying to do a million things at once.
Oh, I am so guilty of that.
It can seriously up your chances of success. There was this study done in India, and get this, the people who just focused on a single savings goal ended up saving almost twice as much as those who were juggling multiple goals.
Oh, less really is more, huh? So we've got quality over quantity when it comes to our goals. But how do we actually make them stick? Because willpower is like a finite resource.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that takes us to step 2. Keep it simple and make it a habit. Remember those crazy diets we were talking about?
Yeah.
They often fail because they require so much brain power and willpower.
True.
Think Small is all about designing routines that are actually easy to maintain over time.
So like less calorie counting and more. What's a good example of that?
Okay, so there's this thing called the 5.2 diet. It's gotten really popular, and I think it's because it's so simple. You just watch your calories 2 days a week. Eat normally the other 5.
Oh, interesting.
That's it. And because it's so easy to follow, people are more likely to stick with it, long term. The key is finding a rhythm that works for you, that you can actually see yourself doing week after week without it feeling like a chore.
It's like setting yourself up for success from the get-go by making it sustainable.
Exactly. And a huge part of that is habit. Our brains are wired for routines, for better or worse. Think about it. That mindless snacking while watching TV, or like grabbing your phone first thing in the morning.
Yep, totally guilty of that.
So those are all habits, right?
Yeah.
So how do we ditch the bad ones and form new, better ones?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Think Small suggests we start by identifying our habit triggers, like what are the specific situations or environments that make us do these things we're trying to change?
So, like, if my trigger for mindless snacking is having a bag of chips on the coffee table while I'm watching TV, maybe I need to rethink that whole situation. Like, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Now, when it comes to building new habits, it's all about repetition, consistency.
Makes sense.
Want to start writing every day? Pick a time every morning and just write, even if it's just for 15 minutes. Eventually, doing it consistently every day when you wake up, it'll become as natural as, brushing your teeth.
It's amazing how these small, deliberate choices can completely change our routines over time, right?
It really is. And it's not always about going it alone, which is actually a perfect segue to step number 3, all about the power of public commitment and finding a commitment referee.
Wait, a referee? Okay, things just got real. Tell me more.
Okay, so maybe not a referee with like a whistle and a yellow card, but more like an accountability buddy.
Okay, got it.
Think Small talks about how when we tell someone our goal, even just casually in conversation, it actually makes us way more likely to follow through.
Oh, totally. It's like that thing, if a tree falls in the forest, if I don't tell anyone about my goal, did it even really happen?
Right.
Kidding. But seriously, I am way more likely to actually go to the gym if I've told a friend I'm going. Like, I don't want to be the flake who bails at the last minute.
It's real, and it's actually kind of funny when you think about it. Think Small even mentions this study that found couples who get married in secret are statistically more likely to get divorced than those who have a big wedding with tons of guests.
Whoa, seriously. That's wild.
Yeah.
Guess there's something to be said for like making it official in front of everyone you know, but how does that translate to like achieving personal goals?
So the idea is to use this whole social dynamic thing to our advantage. Think Small calls it finding a commitment referee. Someone you trust, who's going to keep track of your progress, cheer you on, but also isn't afraid to give you a little nudge if you start slacking.
So like finding that sweet spot between cheerleader and like drill sergeant, right? Someone
Right.
who's supportive but also going to hold you accountable.
100%. And choosing the right person for the job is
Yeah.
super important. You want someone who genuinely wants you to succeed, someone who's not just going to let you slide when things get tough.
So maybe not my friend who's always down to ditch plans for a Netflix binge.
Yeah, maybe not the
Oh,
best choice in this case. Think about it. A coworker, a mentor, a friend who's like known for being super disciplined,
right.
someone who has their own goals and is good at like actually achieving them.
Okay, that makes sense. Choose your accountability buddy wisely. Now, what about those times when we just need a little extra something to stay motivated? Like a little reward or incentive to keep us going?
That's where step 4 comes in. Incentivize yourself smarter. But, and this is where it gets interesting, think small. Says those traditional rewards, especially like money, can actually backfire sometimes.
Wait, really? I always thought cold hard cash was like the ultimate motivator.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it's not always that simple. They talked about this one study where blood donation centers started offering a small cash incentive, and guess what? Donations actually went down.
Seriously? That seems kind of counterintuitive. Why would anyone turn down free money?
It turns out the money actually kind of messed with people's motivation. Before, people were donating out of like this sense of altruism, of doing something good for others.
Right, it just felt good to help.
Exactly. But when you slap a price tag on it, suddenly it's like, well, if they have to pay me to do this, maybe it's not that important.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. It's like paying someone a few bucks to do something they were already going to do out of the kindness of their heart. It cheapens it somehow.
Right. So Think Small talks about tapping into this other powerful motivator,
Hmm.
loss aversion.
Loss aversion.
Oh.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So basically, we're hardwired to feel the pain of losing something way more strongly than the pleasure of gaining something of the same value.
Okay.
Like, think about it with money. Losing a $10 bill feels way worse than the joy of finding a $10 bill in the street, even though it's the same amount of money.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be kicking myself for days if I lost a tenner. But finding one would be like, sweet, free coffee.
Exactly. We hate losing what we already have.
Makes sense. So how do we use this loss aversion thing to help us achieve our goals?
Think Small suggests framing things in terms of what we stand to lose if we don't follow through. Like, there's this really successful anti-smoking program where people had to put down a big deposit.
Okay.
If they smoked even once, they lost the whole thing.
Ouch. High stakes.
Right. And it turned out that the fear of losing all that money was a way more powerful motivator than any potential reward.
Wow, that is such a clever strategy. It plays on that natural instinct to avoid loss. Okay, I'm going to have to remember that one. But, sometimes we just need a little help from our friends, right? It's tough to stay motivated all by ourselves all the time.
Oh, for sure. And that actually brings us to step 5. Team up for success. Think Small talks about how we often underestimate the power of, like, collaboration, having that social support system.
Okay.
We're social creatures at our core, right?
Yeah.
Working towards a common goal with others can be a huge motivator. It's like built-in accountability.
Totally. Like, I'm way more likely to bail on myself than on a friend who's counting on me.
Right. Think Small even described this study.
Mm.
So they asked people to imagine being stranded in a city with a dead phone and needing to borrow a stranger's phone.
Okay. Stressful.
Right. Most people thought, like, almost no one would help.
Mm.
But get this. In reality, more than half the people they asked actually said yes.
Wow, that's actually really heartwarming. See, we always assume the worst in people.
Right. We underestimate how much people are actually willing to help each other out. And that instinct, that willingness to support each other, it can be insanely powerful when it comes to reaching our goals. Like, even just working with one other person, it creates this sense of shared accountability. We're not just letting ourselves down if we fail, we're letting down our teammate too.
Totally. It's like having that workout buddy. You know you're far less likely to skip that early morning run if you know your friend's going to be waiting for you at the park, right?
Exactly. And there's actual science to back this up.
Mm.
Think Small talks about this one study where people who worked out with even just a virtual gym buddy,
Wait, so like they weren't even real people?
yeah, like a recording or something. But even then, they worked out longer and harder than those who exercised alone.
The power of companionship, even if it's all in your head, that's pretty amazing. But I guess the flip side is we've all had those group projects that were like total disasters, right?
Yeah.
So how do we make sure our collaborative efforts are actually productive and not just a recipe for procrastination?
All right, so we got to be on the same page, communicate, make sure everyone's clear on expectations, all that good stuff.
Right.
But then Think Small talks about how crucial it is to have regular feedback in these group settings.
Mhm.
And actually, that's step 6, demand feedback and don't shy away from a little friendly competition.
So we shouldn't just be hoping for the best, right? We actually need to ask for feedback to know if we're on the right track.
Yeah. Feedback is like that course correction we all need sometimes.
Mhm.
It tells us, hey, you're doing great, keep going. Or, maybe adjust your approach a little. It's like that game we all played as kids, hot or cold.
Oh, yeah.
Someone's hiding something, you're getting closer, warmer, warmer, or further away, colder,
Yeah.
colder. Feedback's like that, guiding us toward where we want to go.
I love that analogy. Makes it so clear. But let's be real. Sometimes getting feedback, especially when it's not all sunshine and rainbows, can be a little tough to swallow.
Oh, tell me about it. But Think Small makes this great point that even the tough feedback, even criticism, it's valuable.
Okay.
It helps us figure out where we can improve, helps us avoid making the same mistakes over and over.
Yeah,
And honestly, a little competition never hurt anyone.
true. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I'm at the gym working my butt off and I catch someone peeking over at me, maybe with a little look of, like, man, I gotta step up my game, it motivates me to push even harder.
It's true. A little healthy competition can really light a fire under us, right?
Totally.
Think Small actually talked about this study with doctors who were over-prescribing antibiotics. So they sent these doctors letters just letting them know, hey, you're in the top 20% of prescribers. And just knowing that there were outliers compared to their peers,
Yeah.
it actually led to a big decrease in prescriptions.
Wow, so powerful how just being aware of how we compare to others can change our behavior.
Right. And that takes us to the final step in the Think Small framework. Find what works for you through focused practice and, get this, experimentation.
So we're not just going through the motions, we're being intentional, trying things out, seeing what sticks.
Exactly. Think Small talked about this study on kids who were in spelling bees.
Okay, love a good spelling bee.
Right. So the kids who really focused while they were practicing, like really drilled those tough words,
Yeah.
they did way better than those who just played word games.
Interesting.
Sometimes we got to embrace those moments of focused effort, even when they're not the most fun.
So true, like no pain, no gain, right?
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
But, and this is important, sometimes our ideas about what works are just plain wrong. Think Small gave this great example about organ donation.
Mm.
So they were doing this experiment with a website designed to encourage people to become organ donors. And they were so sure that the website that showed all these smiling faces, emphasizing social proof, like, look, everyone's doing it,
Yeah.
that would be the most effective.
Yeah, makes sense, right? Social proof is huge.
Right. But guess what?
Yeah.
That version actually made people less likely to sign up. The one that worked the best was the simplest one. It's a clear, direct message about how important organ donation is.
Wow, sometimes the most straightforward approach is best. We tend to overthink things.
Totally. The big lesson here is to be open to trying new things, even if they seem a little counterintuitive. What works for one person might not work for another, right?
It's so true.
It's about finding what clicks for you.
I love that. This deep dive has been so eye-opening. As we wrap up here, is there one big takeaway you really want our listeners to walk away with?
For me, it's that real lasting change. Doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. It's those small, consistent actions, those little tweaks we make to our habits and our mindsets that can really add up to big results. It's all about thinking small.
Love it. Small hinges swing big doors. So, to all our listeners out there, what's one tiny habit you can change today to get closer to your goals? Maybe it's finally carving out that time for focused work or reaching out to that potential mentor you've been thinking about. Just remember, the smallest step can set you on the path to amazing things.